Hey everybody, Nick Licameli here. Today we have something very special for you. I had the opportunity to sit down with Dr. Seth Kweller. Not only is Dr. Queller one of the most sought after orthopedic surgeons in the tri state area, he's also a great guy, a good friend, and he's a member of the Iron Game. He's about that health and fitness lifestyle, and in his own words, he's been able to build the best physique of his life into his 40s. In the conversation that follows, Dr. Queller and I talk about his background, how he got into training, and how he got into becoming an orthopedic surgeon. We talked about the importance of living that lifestyle and practicing what we preach and walking the walk if we're going to be educating and teaching our patients to do the same. We talk about our motivations when we first got into training versus our motivations now, and the importance of helping bring people up who are on their own journeys. We talk about balancing our different roles, fatherhood, being a husband, being a son, our roles in our professional environments. And we talk about how training can enhance all of those things. We also talk about training in a home gym and transitioning from training at a gym to training at home. We finished the conversation talking about how the tables were recently turned for Dr. Queller, and he had the opportunity to experience the patient perspective. I hope you enjoy this conversation. I know I did. Without further ado, here is Life, Lifting, and the Gift of the Patient Experience featuring Dr. Seth Kweller. All right. Hey, everybody. So welcome. I am Nick Licameli, and today we have a very special guest. Super excited about this conversation. We have Dr. Seth Kweller. Dr. Kweller, thank you so much for your time today and for sitting down and talking.
Thanks for having me. Thank you very much.
So, Dr. Queller is not only one of the most sought after orthopedic surgeons in this area or on the East Coast for that matter, but he's also uh, a member of the Iron Game, and he trains right, and he's got that lifestyle. He's in that life, and so really great perspectives on a lot of different things. So super excited to dive into that. Dr. Queller, why don't you start? Just give us a little bit of a background about yourself, how you got into training, how you got into your profession, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Sure. So I'm from New Jersey. I grew up here, and my family, a lot of family members were in medicine. Specifically, I have podiatrists in my family. So as I grew up, I kind of always assumed that I would get into medicine somehow, and I went down the path of medical school eventually, and then I decided to do orthopedics. And after that, I did a foot and ankle fellowship. So I specialize in foot and ankle within orthopedics. And it was just a natural course based on the men in my life growing up. My grandfather was a podiatrist. He lived to 100, but was always very proud of that. And then his two sons, my uncles, were podiatrists. So it was a natural thing for me. Uh, and I always had a special interest in the human body and how the body works. It was just always something that interested me. And then as far as lifting and bodybuilding, I would say I really started, even though I did work out a little bit when I was in high school, I really got into it during my fellowship when we were living in Philadelphia around 2005 and 2006. It was right around the time that I was getting married. So I think I was looking to bulk up a little bit, and then it just blossomed from there. And ever since then, I've been getting into it more and more.
Cool. So it was what originally got you into it in high school? Did you play sports? Is that what kind of got you into the gym, or was it more like Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, or like what was the initial like fire that you kind of got you in there?
Well, I would say that I worked out not that much in high school, but a little bit here and there. And I was into sports some. I mean, I was always a huge Yankee fan, and I liked watching sports. But as far as doing sports, I would say I was decent. I tried hard. I like to play soccer. Was basically my sport. A little bit of tennis, and then I think as far as bodybuilding, it was mostly to be with friends and hang out. It wasn't anything too serious. Um, I got more serious, I would say, later on.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess similar situation with me is, so I kind of got into this whole thing. I guess it starts for me with Rocky and watching, different movies, and then my brother and I would always train in my parents' garage. We got into the muscle magazines, um, and played sports in high school. Same, similar. Played football, baseball, but in Nutley, New Jersey, the football team. Uh, Someone once put it. We're small, but we're slow. So I did play football. I wouldn't say I was the epitome of the best football athlete, but I was a medium-sized Italian kid from Nutley who was fast. So I played football, and that got me into the gym. Had a great strength and conditioning coach in high school who really inspired a lot of us to kind of be like him and get at it. And then dove into the muscle magazines and uh, just kind of started making that my life. And then got to a point where the muscle magazines were, they did their job. Like, they sparked enough interest in me, but then I needed more. I needed a bit more evidence based. I needed more, I needed more research, more tangible information than the five best exercises to grow your triceps, or something like that. So transitioned away from the magazines and started taking more of a kind of a evidence-based approach to this stuff. It's very similar to my journey, I guess, through physical therapy. Physical therapy was something that drew me. Similar to you, I was always interested in the body, always interested in exercise, and physical therapy seemed like a perfect thing for me. So went into school, graduated thinking that I knew everything. Similar to the journey through the muscle magazines, like, you have this foundation of knowledge, you have all this confidence in the world, and then you get out there and you're like, holy cow, there's a world of evidence out here that needs to be absorbed and tackled, and biases need to be questioned, and you have this like existential crisis where you're like, holy cow, like, I need to check everything that I think to be true. And then but that's what it's all about, keeping an open mind, right? So my two paths, I guess, professionally and in bodybuilding, were very similar. And I think it's kind of, the foundation is set in, I guess, like rational skepticism and always questioning your own beliefs and biases, and just having a passion for this stuff. It's not hard for me to train in the morning. It's like brushing my teeth. Like, I wouldn't imagine not doing it. And I imagine it's similar for you, right?
It's the best time. It's definitely the best time. But
Yeah.
those Arnold Schwarzenegger movies are powerful. The documentaries and influential. So I could certainly see that. And how could you not? So
Yeah.
they are very powerful.
Yep. Um, the Yeah, for sure. The thing that struck me was, I guess, I was at a point where I was training, and I knew that I looked different than most of my peers or people around me, and I had something special and something unique about me with this kind of lifestyle. Part of me was a little bit like almost embarrassed, like I didn't want to like show people it or whatever. Um and then I kind of went through this stage where, and competing was never something I ever wanted to do. I just worked out for the sake of working out, and I loved it. But then I realized, like, what if someday, like, I stop and I'd have nothing to show for it? Very like selfish, weird thought. Like, how am I ever gonna, like? I'm not gonna have anything to prove. I was at a family party one time, and this 50-year-old man came up to me and said, I used to look like you when I was your age. And I laughed it off, and it was kind of it planted like this seed in my brain, and like I went home that night, and it just like erupted, and I was like, "No, you didn't. You did not look like me when you were my age." But I said, "What am I gonna have to show for that?" Right? So then I ended up getting into competitive bodybuilding, which was the first show I was standing backstage in that little bikini thing and had fake tan around me and oil and standing behind a curtain. And I'm like, my goodness, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, my future in-laws, my future brother-in-law, who was like 11 at the time, like they're in the front row of this auditorium right now. How did I get to this point in my life? And that just kind of sparked my competitive career. So uh, interesting though, and competing, I always say, is not like the end goal in training. You don't need to compete to for any reason. Like people just love training for training, and we've kind of had that conversation. Like there's no real need to compete. Like I asked you, like, hey, did you ever think of stepping on stage? And it's just like, well, not really, and that's totally fine, right? So that was just kind of my journey of kind of getting into that. But I guess what why do you like it? Like what is your motivation for training, I guess? We talked about in the beginning, but what has it kind of formed into at this point?
Well, I mean, I love it. I love your story about that. And I think that it's a bit selfish, for sure. I think that it helps balance me out. We all work very hard, and when we do work, it can be intense, and we have family lives that are demanding. We love our families, and certainly I'm committed to my family. But I think in order to do that, I have to be whole. And part of being whole is doing something that I like. And I enjoy it. I enjoy lifting. I enjoy uh, I like to work out alone. Um, I've for a very long time worked out at a gym, but because of the pandemic, I built a home gym. It was something that evolved. I was very resistant to it at first, but I've enjoyed that even more, having that alone time. And also, sometimes I do get some work done while I am working out, but I feel in some ways that solitude allows me to get that done, and it clears my head. But also, I feel like I'm improving the way I look. I like the look, and I think it's a healthy thing, as long as you're safe, and that's very very important and something that I've learned from the hard way, without question. I've made mistakes and I've suffered for it, but in some ways, while I wouldn't want to do it that way again, I think it's made me better in some ways too. Um, but I also appreciate what you said regarding, preserving how you look. We all realize that it's only natural for us to get older and for things to get a bit more difficult. I don't think that there's any reason to believe that I can't work out in my 70s. But I too wanted to preserve some of these images that, if I can be so bold to say that I'm in better shape now than I have been uh, ever in my life. So, I haven't competed, but I also did a photo shoot prior to, and I know we'll get into it, my recent surgery, and I did the whole thing with the airbrushed tan, and just it was something else. And while I'm doing it, some of the same thoughts are, what am I doing? But I don't regret it. It's fun, and you have to have fun. So.
Yeah, a lot of great points there, and the the one thing you touched on was balancing all of your roles. You're a father, your husband, you are an orthopedic surgeon, you're a son, a brother, right? All of these different roles, and a lot of times we think of how do we balance this lifestyle, this training, and the way that we eat and things like that with all of those roles. And I think you said it perfectly. I don't know that we have to add it as another hat that we wear. It's almost like it sets a foundation to be a better version of all of those roles. And one of the examples you said was your home gym. Um, uh, I also train at home now too. The kind of impetus for that for me was my daughter was born in September 2019. So there was no talk of a pandemic at that point. But leading up to her birth, I said to myself, you know what? As much as I love going to the gym, why don't, just in case I want to stay home and help with some early morning feedings, and I want to be in the house as I'm training, do a couple sets, run upstairs if I have to help out, come back downstairs. Why not just set up a little area in my basement with some basics just in case? So had some equipment from my parents' house, brought that over, bought a couple things on Amazon. Back when you can just go to Amazon, order a piece of home gym equipment, and it'll be at your house in 2 days. Different world now, that's for sure. So I made that little home gym, if you want to call it that. I have a little squat rack, a little adjustable bench with a leg curl, leg extension, have some old rusty weights, rusty dumbbells, an old rickety chair, which comes in handy for everything, but you get innovative like when you're restricted with your equipment. Anyway, so that was all set up for the birth of my daughter, September 19th, 2019. Haven't been to the gym since then. I've just trained at home ever since she was born. Loved it. Very similar to you. It is my. I love the aloneness almost. I think I'm a very in my day to day. I'm very much um, talking to people all the time, having positive energy, um, uh, helping people through their different aches and pains that they're coming with, and just setting the feel in the office um, as a positive mood, as a family atmosphere, and that takes energy. It takes energy. Um, it's definitely, I wouldn't say it's not natural for me, but I definitely need the yin and the yang. I need the moment of solitude in the morning, listen to a podcast, listen to some kind of course or something, and just kind of have my moment. So yeah, the kind of spark that made me train at home was not so much COVID, but trying, like you said, to integrate uh, all of these things together and allow training not to take away from those other roles, but almost to enhance them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I absolutely appreciate that. And it's been very interesting trying to build a gym during this pandemic because I'm sure that most people know how hard it is to get some of this equipment, but just cherry picking stuff and really looking hard, I've been able to get things in an affordable way. So that's good.
What would you say I guess, what's the best thing that you found in your home gym, and what's like the most like MacGyvered up like situation that you got going on in your gym?
Well, as you know, so I do have a bench that's just a great bench that I got on the secondary market along with some weights, but the bench is really great and I got it at a pretty good price. So I was happy about that. And it's, one of these modular things that can be flat or inclined. So and it's even got like you could do some leg extensions with it too. So one of the things I did get from Amazon was a cable system that I attached to the planks in the ceiling, and it's definitely rudimentary, but it works. So I could do tricep extensions and rows, and I even do leg curls for hamstrings on my belly. So I'm sure there's a lot more that I could do with it, but I get to do a lot, and I have to open up a door, and it's like the unfinished side of our basement, and it's pretty interesting, but it works. It's totally great. I love it.
You're being modest. That setup is something else. I'm envious that you have that little the boards on the floor and hooked up to the ceiling, and I have that, like, I have that same pulley system. Haven't set it up just yet, but I'm very impressed by that setup.
So one of the just going back to orthopedics a little bit, I'll admit that I really growing up, my father wasn't around, and I grew up without really a man in my life to show me how to build things. So the first time I really got into fixing anything with a drill was as a resident in orthopedics, and along with that, and the pandemic, I've become a bit more useful around the house, and so that's somewhat of a, I won't say new, but it wasn't something I did growing up. Let's put it that way. And with the building of the home gym, I think honestly, I think that the flooring is like a big thing, even though it's so simple. But creating like a little atmosphere with the flooring, and then yeah, I mean, I put together a couple things with that system, which is it's totally cool. I love it. It's
Yeah, absolutely. Um, the One of the things, and it kind of piggybacks off of the conversation we're having before, is this is something I think about often. How, I guess, how important do you think it is for someone like me or someone like you who works with patients every day? How important is it for us to kind of walk the walk and use ourselves as an example of of what we're preaching, right? How am I supposed to tell someone that if they lose weight and exercise consistently, it will help their knee pain? If I'm overweight myself and I don't exercise, I would feel almost like a hypocrite. So I feel like that helps me deliver that message. It helps me deliver that message with confidence, with personal experience that I can reflect on and help the patient with, my own struggles, my own perspectives on exercise, and how to kind of integrate it in my life rather than have it add on to an already packed schedule. I feel like I have that perspective to offer patients who may be struggling to get into this stuff. Do you feel that? Do you feel anything similar to that? Like, how does that affect you throughout your practice?
I think it's huge. I think it's so important. And how do you tell somebody to stop smoking when you have a cigarette in your mouth, or to lose weight when you have a big gut? And I empathize with that type of, these are problems that certainly anyone could have. We're all human. I'm far from perfect, but when you're sitting there and you're telling somebody to be fit and you're not, it just doesn't really resonate. And I've heard that from some patients. I think about the doctor in Forrest Gump. I don't even remember if he had a cigarette in his mouth, but I remember that he was overweight. And it's just, I think that's the older way. And I think the newer doctor or practitioner is a bit more sensitive to that, and realizes that in order to be effective as a communicator, you also need to, like you said, walk the walk. I think it makes a difference to be a role model for patients. It really makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're going to get into kind of your journey through being a patient. And I think we're going to touch on a lot of that too. Before we go there, one more thing I want to just touch on, and it's something that you have a tremendous skill of doing. And I don't know if I've ever actually said this to you, but I admire this trait of yours, and that is to, um, not only go through this journey on your own and get in, like you said, the best shape of your life, which is an understatement. You look phenomenal. I mean, top notch. Like you could step on stage anywhere and do really, really, really well. So again, not that that's the end goal, but uh, what you do is not only do it for yourself, but you have this innate ability to bring other people up with you and motivate other people. And this is seen very clearly in the Facebook group that we're both members of. And we have people who post pictures of their journeys, their struggles. They ask questions. They are vulnerable. They talk about their weaknesses. They talk about times when they've fallen off the rails. And without fail, you are always commenting under there with some kind of encouragement or some kind of anecdotal experience of your own and how that person can use that to get better, or offering a word of encouragement. So I guess my question would be, how much, like, where does that come from? Like, what do you feel like that is, why is that a top priority of yours to not only go through the journey yourself, but help bring other people up with you?
Well, I think on it, I'll be. Thank you, by the way. I think that it's really just a natural thing. I think as healers, we want to help people, and that's certainly something that's a part of what I do and what you do. You're unbelievable at it as well, and I've gotten that sense from some of these people on the Facebook page, and not that it surprised me, but I didn't necessarily expect it. I was just, being somebody that's supportive, and I think that that's just part of who I am, and I think maybe as a doctor and an orthopedic surgeon, I think you want to help. Obviously, there's always a little bit of concern because you don't want to put yourself at risk from a legal standpoint, but in a very careful way. I've tried to assist people and not overshoot my role because nobody really knows me or who I am, but and what I do. But I think that showing a vulnerable side and just being honest about who you are and being confident about that can help people because as I said before, I'm not perfect. We all make mistakes. We all do things that maybe we regret, but sharing some of that lets people know that it's okay. And I think that life is, not to get too heavy or deep, I think that life is very hard for some people. And we all need to know that we're not alone, that we're not the only one. And just sharing our own experiences and our own faults, can help other people feel more comfortable about that.
Do you see yourself in the people that you help? Like maybe a younger version of yourself, or like a different version of yourself? Like, is that something that drives you?
Well, I think that I realized just it just goes along with what I just said. Somebody who's I don't know, like we're talking about fitness. So somebody who is obese, I think that, there's no question that if I eat unhealthy, that I eat a lot, that I'm going to gain weight. But I think that certainly genetics plays a role in a lot of these things. And, what did I do to deserve that I don't become morbidly obese from eating a lot? I didn't do anything. So why should I feel like, I'm better? Or it's just we're all human beings who struggle with different things, and we all have our own demons. And just to recognize that I didn't do anything special to be thinner, or not excuse me, not be obese. uh just to be humble as a human being, I think is really what it comes down to. And sure, I see myself in, any struggle. It's just a different flavor. So just to recognize that.
Yeah, that's a really great perspective. I really hope everyone was listening to that. The one thing that you said was it's kind of like um, you don't know someone's situation. Everyone struggles. Everyone has hard times, um, and I've learned that throughout my life in my practice, but also in bodybuilding as well. So you can't judge someone when you first see them because you don't know where they're coming from. You don't know if you see someone obese walking down the street, maybe they're, I don't know, 250 pounds, and your knee-jerk reaction may be to think something negative of them. But you don't know, maybe they were 350 pounds 9 months ago, right? Maybe they're on this journey and they're actually making changes, but we don't know that because we don't know that person's situation. And bodybuilding happens all the time. At any competition, you're going to have some people on stage that look like they'd never lifted in their life. And it's kind of like, gosh, like, what are you doing up there, man? Like, don't you see like what the sport's about? Like, you've seen pictures of other people and you see yourself, like, what's going on? Like, where's the disconnect here? And then initially, one of my first, first couple shows, that was what my initial thought was. Um, Maybe because I was a bit moody because I haven't had a carb in about 6 months. No, just kidding. But then they get on stage and there's a short bio about them, and they say, so and so is a 50-year-old cancer survivor, has 5 kids, and you're just like, whoa. Like, then your whole mindset shifts, your whole perspective shifts, and you have nothing but respect for that person who 2 seconds ago you were looking down on. And I don't know that it's a I think it's natural. I think we have to try to control that a little bit, but I think it's just natural for that to happen. But yeah, definitely, we don't know everyone's situation. Everyone has different genetics, just like you said. So if anything is taken from this, just make sure that in any interaction you have with people, just make sure that you don't be too quick to judge them until you really know who they are, where they're coming from.
Well said. Very well said.
Cool. All right. So, Dr. Queller, obviously you're a doctor. How many surgeries have you done in your life, would you say?
Oh boy. Certainly in the thousands. I mean, sure. I
In the
mean,
thousands.
yeah.
Okay. So recently you had a situation where the tables were turned and you had the gift of the patient experience. So I think and we've had conversations about it, and that's what kind of sparked this conversation between us now. The way that the direction our conversation was going was very deep, and then I said we need to talk to each other about this. So bring us up to speed on what led to the surgery, kind of the mindset going into it. Obviously, like we said, you're in top shape. This is training and lifting, and this lifestyle is part of who you are, foundational to who you are. And now we have this atomic bomb of a surgery getting thrown onto it. So bring us through the story.
Sure. So I would say maybe about 4 months ago, I looked down and I saw like just a little swelling or bump, in my inguinal region. And I saw it and I thought, oh gosh, so I probably have a hernia there. So I went to see the surgeon. He agreed that it was a small hernia. He felt the other side, and I didn't see anything there. But he's like, "Oh, you got a little hernia on this side too." And I said, "Oh, okay." And he didn't push it. He said, "Look, you could have surgery if you want, or you could wait." And at the time, I thought, well, maybe I'll just wait. He said if it gets bigger or more symptomatic, because it really wasn't bothering me per se, but as it gets bigger, the surgery gets a bit more complicated. And I thought maybe it was getting a little bit bigger on that one side. So I decided to go ahead and just get it taken care of. In my mind, I'm thinking, oh gosh, so, working out has caused something like this. And I'm not 100% sure that that's necessarily true. There is a genetic component to and risk factors related to inguinal hernias. My father had them, and he had two operations for that. So I went ahead and decided to do it. And 3 weeks ago, at this very moment, I was having the surgery, which looks like everything went great. Very pleased. But it was a bit of a struggle the first week. I have to tell you, it wasn't easy. And obviously now I'm just kind of healing and getting better and getting ready to get back into it. But it's certainly eye-opening and always always an experience to be on the other side, which I'm sure something you want to talk about. It's, I think, in some ways a very good thing. Listen, I'm constantly telling patients what to do. I'm guiding them. Sometimes I have to be parental and remind patients that are older than me, that they need to listen better. But I think that I know that it's great to have the experience of feeling the way they do. You talked about, walking in somebody's shoes before, and to know what it feels like to be in pain. Um, and I think that in some ways it makes you more sensitive, but sometimes it actually does the opposite, surprisingly, because it's like, look, I can do this, so could you. But uh, without question, I'm able to look in a patient's eyes, and this is not my first surgery, but I'm able to look in a patient's eyes and say, I know what you're going through. I know that this is hard and you could do it. I did it. And it wasn't easy. It was very, very hard at first, but now, I made it through, and you're going to do that too. You're going to make it through. Um, I think that it's extremely powerful to be able to do that. And before I ever had surgery, my first was in 2015. I'm not saying I wasn't as good as a doctor, but I really feel an important emotional connection with patients because of it. It. Neither of my surgeries were easy. Neither of them were a walk in the park. My first surgery, it wasn't even just the surgery, but more of the injury itself, where I was really laid up and I understood, the uncertainty of, will I get better? I really didn't know. And even after the surgery for a couple of years, I was limited. So it's it's extremely powerful. It's a good thing. Not that I would choose to have surgery if I could avoid it. I think that, as a practitioner, I'm proud of the fact that I'm very conservative and I don't jump to surgery. But and certainly as a patient, I didn't either. But it's still a really positive thing that comes from the fact that I needed surgery.
Yeah, that's really, really well said. And I think the living through it helps us kind of control alt delete and kind of recalibrate that sometimes. I don't know if you feel the same, but sometimes we get, yes, we're empathic, and yes, we understand that the person in front of us is not a foot, is not a knee, is not a shoulder. It's an actual functioning person with roles and with duties and with hobbies and grandchildren and children. But I think sometimes as the weeks go by and as things get busy, and we tend to forget that this person exists outside of our office. And when you go through something like a surgery, it reminds you 24/7 that you had a surgery. And just like you said, it kind of helps make you a better listener, maybe a better overall practitioner because of it. That's really cool.
And just along those lines, I think that we're people, and I know there are a lot of people like this who consistently try and get better. I mean, we're looking at all different aspects of our life, whether it's as a father or as a husband or as a practitioner. We're trying to improve, and until I guess the day we close our eyes for the last time, we should be doing that. Uh, and I think that's just something that it's sort of innate. It's not something that you could teach. It's just something that you're just who you are. So
Yeah, I recently had a situation. This is just this week, and I really have been reflecting on it quite a bit. Not a didn't have an injury, didn't have a surgery, but what happened was we are so as you know, we're expecting my second baby in May. So
right,
it's March, mid-March right now. So we're on the home stretch here. And my wife's car can't fit 2 car seats. So we had to get a car that could fit 2 car seats. So we're in this process of car shopping, which there are not many things that are better than car shopping. I'll tell you, colonoscopy, maybe, jury duty, but um, so we we found a car, and we're gonna sell my wife's car. There's a point to this, I promise. So my car now, old faithful 2004 RAV4. I love the thing. Like, it's my little buddy. Um, that was gonna be kind of like my car, and then the bigger car was gonna be my wife, driving the kids around or what have you. So a lot was riding on my car to keep functioning. That's the point. A lot was riding on my car to keep functioning at this point, because we're going to sell my wife's car and get this new car. Just recently, or I would say maybe the past month or so, we started noticing like this burning smell, like this gas smell coming from my car. The car has never given me a problem. Now that we're making this transition in our lives, now it's going to give me a problem, right? So my first thought, my knee-jerk reaction was, it's a 2004. It's shot. Something went on it, and now I got to get 2 new cars, because I can't just have 1 car. I got to have 2 cars, and now I got to start looking for a new car. So in my mind, I'm thinking who I'm going to call. I'm thinking about budget. I'm thinking about what kind of car I'm thinking. All of these things are going through my mind simply from the act of smelling something burning. Didn't know what it was, didn't know anything about it. That cascade of thoughts happened just from that stimulus of smelling that smell.
right,
So I call my mechanic, or I text him, right? And I'm like, look, this is what's happening. I'm smelling burning gas, burning oil, burning rubber, something when my car starts. I got to bring it down the shop to you. So the morning I was getting in my car to go to the mechanic, and I'm like, you know what? Let me pop the hood. Mind you, I know nothing. I might as well be opening the skull and looking at the human brain ready to operate. I don't know what I'm looking at when I pop the hood of a car. So I pop the hood of my car, and I'm like, maybe there's something here that's jumping out at me that I could see from a layman that can maybe just kind of see this. I noticed there was like this hole with threads on it, as if there was a cap that should have gone on it. And then right next to that, wedged in between like my window washer fluid and whatever, there was an upside down cap with threads on it. So I'm like, huh, I wonder if this goes on there. So it fit right on there, and it closed it up. And as the car was running, I noticed there were like drops of liquid coming out of that open container. So I'm like, huh. What happened was, and this is the long story short, is I got an oil change about a month before, transmission fluid, oil change, and they forgot to put the cap back on when they were done. So there was little drops of oil coming out of the thing and landing on my engine and burning, and that was what the smell was. So luckily we don't commute very long, so just around town, nothing. It was just this odor that we were getting. Bring it back to the place. They put the cap back on, check the oil, everything's good. Like, clean the engine off, done. car is absolutely perfect again.
Awesome.
The point, the point of all of that is every single day that I go to work, I have the same exact conversation with patients, except when it comes to their pain. Their pain, their body is an area that they don't know much about. Say it's their shoulder. They don't know much about their shoulder, just like I didn't know anything about opening the hood of a car. All they have is Google, YouTube, social media posts about the shoulder, right? So they come in with with these narratives of my rotator cuff is torn and I probably need surgery. That's the same thing I did, but every day I have these conversations with people, and we kind of talk people off ledges almost like, hey, I understand that's what you're thinking, and I understand why that's what you're thinking. However, it's a bit more nuanced than that. I think we could probably do this if we get into some strategic exercise and modify some activities and things like that. So my patient experience was something with my car, but that experience really did make me reflect on what the patient is feeling, because it was very, very similar and very scary. Right. Like I said in the beginning of that story, I was going through that cascade of thoughts. I was already thinking about how I'm going to buy a new car when I had no reason to be doing that. That's like a patient thinking about recovering from surgery because they felt a pain in their shoulder when they went to pick up a bag of groceries. So that is my little anecdote of what happened recently, and kind of made me reflect on the patient experience.
Yeah, I think that's incredible and powerful. To really even make that connection is impressive, but it's true. And I try hard to understand and know sometimes what that patient is thinking. It's not always easy because they're not always going to tell you. You're not always going to hear, well, I'm afraid of the fact that I might need to replace my car, the budget issues, time that it's going to weigh on us. And when a patient comes into the room and I'm speaking with them, they've already gone through that thought process that you just described with the car. And sometimes I'll ask them, what is it? Like I'll ask them what they're afraid of, or, you know, try and if I haven't figured it out, just, we're all adults, and we're all humans, and I could just say it. What is it that you're really really concerned about, or what are you looking for? What is it that you want? Because in orthopedics, sometimes there's not a tremendous number of options. It's you know, say medication, physical therapy, bracing, surgery. But and then some of these other modalities, but some of them are fringe and haven't been proven, so they sound sexy and cutting edge, but in reality, they're just expensive and unhelpful. So it's I think communication is so important, giving, showing that empathy, but also asking or trying to figure out exactly what it is that the patient is scared of, wants to accomplish. And I'm sure that's something that you do as well. It's critical. It's critical for the patient, because just like anything, if I'm meeting their needs that I want, but not meeting the needs that they want, what have we really accomplished? Because if there is that disconnect, if they leave the office with, well, he offered me this, but I'm not even really interested in that, then, even though they're not accepting something that might help them, at the end of the day, I haven't helped them really.
Yeah.
I think it's important.
I want to be respectful of your time, but one experience that I had early on in my career, as I was kind of making this transition from being this very biomechanically focused, looking at people as levers and pulleys and forces. And um, I had this experience where this patient was coming in with low back pain, and she was really down about it. And I just knew something was up, and I just couldn't get to the bottom of why this was kind of impacting her so much. And so we talked more and more, and it turns out that she was just a new grandmother. So her daughter had a baby, and so we were talking about that. And she said, I just want to be able to, play with my granddaughter and not have pain. And I said, okay, that's significant, but I feel like there's more that we're not talking about. So we dove a little deeper, and I opened up a bit, and which made her open up a bit, and we kind of both had this vulnerable moment. And she said to me, my daughter's mother-in-law, so the grandmother on the other side, is very fit, very thin, very active. And I just don't like the idea that she is going to be that fun, active, running around playing grandmother. And I feel like I'm going to be the grandmother that's stuck on the rocking chair as the kids run around and play. I said, now we're talking. I said, now this is where we need to be. So then we had that conversation. There were tears, but we had that conversation, and that guided everything we did in her rehab after that. Everything was relating back to playing with that grandchild. Everything was kneeling down, standing up, lifting. How heavy is your granddaughter? 15 pounds. Okay, this ball is 15 pounds. Let's pick this ball up, right? So that guided our entire treatment just from a single deep empathic conversation. And I think that really is, like we keep saying, we can go with examples all day long, but I think it really hits home the fact that sometimes what what we say and how we relate to patients can be equally, if not more important than anything else we do.
Oh, absolutely. Just the littlest things that we say make a huge impact, and sometimes you learn that the hard way, but it's true. I remember even back in fellowship, I had a patient, and obviously, in foot and ankle, this is always an issue, but it was a diabetic patient. And, I'll say this, as a fellow, I'm just kind of doing my job, or I'm learning. And, I used, not that this was wrong, and I don't think it was wrong, but for the patient, it was, I just used the word amputation. She was losing part of her toe, her big toe. And she came to me post-op, and obviously under the guidance of my fellowship director, but in a very nice way, because we had a good relationship. She said, it really upset me when you used the word amputation, and it wasn't even something that I had thought about. So we just have to be very, very careful what we say, and the things that we say are incredibly impactful. And I know that as a patient, and I know and I know that as a practitioner as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Dr. Queller, I think we could talk all day, but I know you're a busy guy. I appreciate your time. I think this was I hope the listeners get a lot from this. I know they will. I selfishly got a ton from it, just from talking to you. I feel like we talk, but we don't ever sit down and talk for over an hour. So I think this was a cool opportunity for both of us to kind of take time and just kind of connect. It was awesome. I really, really enjoyed it. If you want to, if people want to get in touch with you, Dr. Carla, where could they go?
So the office is in Nutley. It's 45 Franklin Avenue in Nutley, and the phone number there is 973 And thank you very much. It's a two-way street. I get a lot out of this too. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. If anyone wants to get in touch with me, you could shoot me an email at nick@strengthtogether online, or any of my social medias, Instagram at Nick Licameli. And Dr. Queller, you also do telemedicine, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Cool. All right. So again, thank you so much for your time. I hope everyone enjoyed this. Keep walking the walk, keep living that life, keep helping people. And I look forward to continuing working together.
Absolutely. Thanks
All right.
again.
Take care, everyone.